8,000? 108,000. Who got 108,000? Okay. Ye of 108,000 are correct. Okay. So let's look over the problem for SE7. What does Mrs. McGrath always say about trying to solve these problems? How should we go about this?
Can't do it, you're stupid.
No, Mrs. McGrath never says that. I never remember hearing those words. Okay, does anybody else want to try? What does Mrs. McGrath say about solving these problems? What do I say?
Use algebra.
Okay, use algebra. And so when we have algebra, what do we always start with? We start with a what?
Starting with what you have.
A formula, right. Okay, so in this case, this problem is an accounting equation problem. So let's start with that. So we're looking at SE7 on page, what is the page? 31. And the problem says, Carlton Company had assets of $280,000 and liabilities of $120,000 at the beginning of the year. So after we come up with a formula that we're going to use, what's the second thing that I always say?
Plug in it and find the variable.
Good. Plug in what you know and solve for what you don't know. So what do we know here? We're dealing with the beginning. And what do we know about the beginning of this equation?
Assets for 280.
Assets were 280,000. Good.
Liabilities were 120.
120? 120,000. Okay. So our unknown here is stockholders' equity. Can anybody tell me then, if we're solving for this, what is stockholders' equity?
160.
It's 160. So X equals 160. Okay? Because if we're solving this problem, assets have to equal liabilities plus stockholders' equity. If we don't know it, the answer algebraically is 180. I don't have to do the whole algebra here for it, do I? Okay, good. All right, so let's move on. Second part here, it says, at the beginning of the year, blah, 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 and assets of 400,000 and liabilities of 140 at the end of the year. So if we look at the end of the year, we see that assets were 400,000, and how much were liabilities? 140. Okay. So again, we're solving for stockholders' equity. How much is our stockholders' equity then?
260.
It's 260. Okay. Now, in algebra, if one side of the accounting equation changed by a certain amount, the other side has to change by the same certain amount, right? So how much did this side change by?
120.
It changed by 120. So therefore, this side has to total up and change by 120 as well. How much did this change by? 20. And how much did this change by?
100.
Or plus 100. Okay? All that has to be true. So let's see what happens from there. So during the year, an investment of 40,000 in the business, 40,000 in the business, and company dividends of 48,000 were made. What amount of net income did the company earn during the year? So what formula do we have that we've got in our little repertoire of formulas? Do we have that relates to this accounting equation that relates also to profits and dividends and so on and so forth? What formula did I give to you? George.
The beginning stockholders' equity plus net profit or minus net loss minus dividends plus contributed capital equals the ending stockholders' equity.
Okay, so beginning stockholders' equity plus or minus net profit or loss plus, I'm going to call it contributed capital. This is our investments, right? contributed capital. You said minus dividends. Am I missing anything? Am I missing anything? Equals ending stockholders' equity. Right? So again, let's plug in what we know and solve for what we don't know. Do we know what the beginning stockholders' equity was? 160. What about our ending stockholders' equity? 260. Do we know what our net profit or loss is? No, that's our X for this problem. What about our contributed capital? It said in the problem that we had an investment of $40,000. And then our dividends? Minus 48. Okay. So now, can we solve this?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. Okay, so we have 160 plus X minus 8 equals 260. Right? So this is X 260 minus, what is this, 152? Right? So X equals 108. And if we plug that back in, it should help us to get to that 260. Does that make sense? Show of hands. 5s, 4s, 3s. Okay? So you got to know your relationship between your formulas. You got to know your formulas. You got to know your relationship between your formulas. Yes?
Can you like put a screenshot of that on Google?
I just recorded that.
Okay.
So I'll post it in Classroom. Yeah. Okay, I'll post it in my YouTube and post it in Classroom. Okay, that's SE7. I'm going to stop recording that right now.